This is Anna Conti. I talked to Molly Springfield today as she was getting ready for her drawing show at Stephen Wolf Fine Arts. She begins by explaining the significance of a particular drawing called Primary Information. It shows a Lucy Lepard postcard from an art textbook.
You say that was pretty influential in affecting your work?
Yeah, well, it was the first time I'd ever taken a class that really focused on late 20th century work, especially conceptual art, and I never really studied it before or thought much about it. So it was pretty eye-opening for me at the time. So I was pretty traditional in my training and outlook. And that's what really changed in grad school, was the thinking behind what I was doing. So it's kind of funny in a way that now that I'm out, I've kind of come around back to where I started in a way. Because this is obviously realist work. It can be considered that way. I don't necessarily think of it.
Well, how do you think of it? That was going to be my next question. Do you think of yourself as a realist now, or as a conceptual artist, or what?
I think of myself more as conceptual artist. I don't have a problem with just being realist work.
Right.
Because that kind of process is very important to me. So I don't have a...
I would hope that process was important to you, because these must take a really long time.
Me too. I think on average, the drawings take me between a week and a half to 2 weeks, depending on the actual page. You know, the more text, the longer it takes me. But I start by making a photocopy, and then I use a graphite transfer paper that I put between the photocopy and the page that I'm drawing on, the text. And then I have to go back over it again once I'm done with that, because inevitably the graphite transfer isn't wide enough or enough, you know, so I have to go back through everything by hand. And then the rest is just done from looking at the photocopy. But even the process of tracing over the copy onto the graphite is not a precise thing. You know, if you look closely at the words on the page, you can see they're obviously done by hand and not by, say, like some other kind of transfer process.
So there's still a sense of the artist's hand very much present in it. Yeah.
And for some of the wider areas, like around the book or the page where you see the lid of the photocopier, do you use the bars of graphite for that?
No, well, I did use some bars on this large one over here. But mostly I just use a pencil.
Well, speaking of being a control freak, that was another thing that interested me, because usually, you know, the galleries down here, they hang your work. So, does this gallery not do that, or did you insist on hanging it?
No, I kind of would come and hang it, yeah. I think if I could do it. If I couldn't have done it, then I wouldn't have had a problem. But also, I feel better doing it myself because they're not framed, and I didn't want them framed. So I feel like I should be doing the hanging just so that I'm responsible if God forbid something happens while I'm doing it.
So are you being real meticulous about which ones are next to which other ones based on the content, or the size, or anything?
It's a little bit of all those things. There isn't, with the exception of these two, which I kind of wanted to be next to each other, there isn't really a particular order. I feel like people can come in and look at each one individually and not necessarily need to think about one to the next. You can certainly do that because there's a kind of circular logic that's happening, and these, I was telling Stephen earlier, these two are really going together because I want them to, and if somebody didn't know what they were, they wouldn't really know why they were going together, so it's really just selfish reasons for me. But
how are they different from the others?
Well, for the most part, every book in this show has something to do with language or to a lesser degree, memory or loss. So that book is Tolstoy's The Death of Ivan Ilyich. And that book is a collection of sermons by my late grandfather, who was a Methodist minister. And the particular sermon that the page is open to, it's talking about the death of Ivan Ilyich. Because another kind of thing that I like to play around with is the difference between reading something and seeing something, and how text can do both things, especially when it's in a piece of work, artwork. Do you read it or do you see it as you would see an object? So in a lot of work that I've done with text, text is rendered indecipherable to varying degrees so that you aren't necessarily able to read it, you just have to see it.
Like some of your paintings with the handwriting, ballpoint pen on paper, I've noticed that those were really indistinct, but beautifully rendered.
Thank you.
I can't imagine how you could do that in oil.
It's been a while since I did it, so I just started out, the bottom layer is pretty much a realistic rendering of the segment of the text.
Right.
And then I put a thin layer of white over it, and I started going over it again and again.
Wow.
So that it starts to erase itself. It can be read if somebody wants to spend the time and try to read them. You could pick out most of what they say. But
So why is it important to you that they're not framed?
in my mind, there's not a frame that exists that will look good unless it was invisible or something. So I'll just leave it up to the collector. If someone buys one, and obviously they're going to want to have it framed because they should be framed. So I'll just let them make the choice.